The 21-year-old who opened his front door only to be shot in the chest at point-blank range in what was said to be a planned execution, as his killers laugh and smile in court in front of the dead man's family.
Six individuals have been sentenced to life imprisonment for the murder of 21-year-old Janayo Lucima, who was fatally shot in a premeditated attack on April 1st.
This story takes place in West Kensington in the London borough of Hammersmith and Fulham. An execution-style murder of Janayo Lucima that led to multiple teenagers being handed lengthy sentences. But before I get on to what happened that night, let's quickly look back into the backstory of 21-year-old Janayo Lucima. Janayo Lucima was described as an aspiring music producer, but from a young age, Janio would become involved in county line operations. I've covered before how young boys get roped into this sort of lifestyle through gang members grooming them and reeling them in by buying them expensive clothes or even giving them money to move drugs around different cities. Janio was pulled into this lifestyle and was a known drug dealer in the streets. This will end up with him serving a prison sentence back in 2021 for being linked to the murder and dismemberment of 53-year-old William Algar. You see, William Algar was a jazz trumpeter who was recognized in local music circles, but he had some serious mental health issues and was repeatedly in psychiatric care. William would start using Class A drugs, and reports say that he was also now selling these same drugs for profit. He would get into disputes with drug dealers around the area, and tensions were now building up. Around December 2019, William would be murdered in his own home in southwest London. The attack was brutal and he was stabbed multiple times all over his body. After they finished attacking him, they cut off his arms and legs with a Rambo knife and disposed of his body in parts. Some remains were found later, whilst others are still missing to this day. His torso and head were found in his flat, and his limbs were recovered elsewhere. Police described his home as being taken over by drug dealers, which is known as cocoon. This is the term used when drug dealers take over someone's house for their own operations. William's house was being used for drug dealing without his full control. There were financial disputes involved, and he had fallen out with some people over money. Janayo Lucima, who was 19 years old at the time of William's murder, would be linked to the crime and would get arrested days after. He was charged with perverting the course of justice because the court found that Janio purchased bleach, black bin bags, washing up liquid, clothes and other cleaning materials to clean up the scene after William was stabbed to death. Janio also admitted that he ran a drug line from William's house. Reports say that he was dealing or facilitating drug operations out of that property and had essentially taken over William's home for his own drug business. It's important to note that no one has actually been convicted for William Algar's murder, in terms of who physically stabbed him and who planned the murder. The charges have been brought against some, but the case remains unresolved in that sense. Janayo's role was only in the cleanup, evidence concealment, and perverting the course of justice. For his involvement, Janayo Lucima was sentenced to 3 years and 3 months in prison. He served part of the sentence, then was released in March 2023. His family and friends say that after his release, he was trying to change his life around. He had music interests and had expressed wanting to move away from the violence. Whether Janio had fully broken away from a criminal lifestyle is unknown, but it's safe to say that his final moments was a result of built-up tension. On the 1st of April 2024, Janio will be chilling at an address in Barons Court, West Kensington. Around 10:15 PM, there was a knock at the door. Janio went to open the front door, but as soon as he cranked open that door, he was shot straight in the chest and dropped to the floor. A planned, organised execution-style murder. To really understand the planning of this execution, let's take a look at what happened behind the scene. So essentially, CCTV will catch a group of boys meeting on Fabian Road, Fulham, earlier that evening. They were seen changing clothes and concealing weapons. 22-year-old Kuda Al-Kurdi, described as an orchestrator, would phone Janio pretending that he wanted to set up a drug deal. This was to make sure that Janio would actually open up his front door. 18-year-old Mohammed Mansouri was waiting across the street opposite the property, ready to attack. The rest of the group had positioned themselves around Comera Road to provide coverage and ensure escape routes. As soon as Janio opened the door, Mohammed fired once at close range, hitting Janio straight in the chest. He had no time to defend himself and ultimately stood no chance. Janayo Lucima died at the scene, and now a major murder investigation would be launched. CCTV was a big piece of evidence and captured the suspects that the police would now look into. The police were able to get phone records, which is when they were able to piece together that Kuda Al-Kurdi was making calls to Janio before his death. Kuda had also made phone calls to the other people involved in the murder, which police now had a list of. The police were able to retrieve weapons that the members were carrying as backup, and using these weapons they were able to forensically link the different suspects by fingerprints. The CCTV also showed the group changing clothes en route to the scene and concealing weapons. This gave the police the impression that the attack was planned and well thought out in order to avoid identification. The police were building up a mountain of evidence, but the only thing they were missing was the actual murder weapon that killed Janio. Despite the absence of the murder weapon, the police had everything they needed. Phone location data also helped place the movements of the suspects before and after the murder. The police would now look to arrest all the suspects involved. It was found that several of the convicted defendants tried to flee the UK straight after the killing. Some went to Scotland and others left to countries like Spain or Morocco. These escape attempts were part of the investigation, and police later arrested suspects abroad or as they returned. The arrests were made over several weeks, and key suspects Mohammed Mansouri and Mukhtar Saeed were caught and arrested in Scotland. The police were unsure about the motive for the killing, but with the evidence gathered, all that was left now was for all 6 suspects to stand trial at the Old Bailey. The prosecution were gunning for joint enterprise, even though only one person fired a shot that killed Janio. The others were involved in roles that supported or were essential to making the killing possible. All 6 of the defendants had a role in some way, whether they were lookouts, backup, or involved in the planning of the attack. The defense teams for each of the members tried to argue that they didn't know what was going to happen, and some tried to distance themselves by saying that they didn't expect Janio to be murdered. Mohammed Mansouri's defense included a claim about not realizing that the gun was actually going to be used. The trial will last several months, and on the 15th of July 2025, 6 individuals were found guilty at the Old Bailey for the murder of Janayo Lucima. The sentencing took place on the 5th of September 2025, and the judge didn't hold back because these group of young men got given some of the longest terms I've covered in a while. Kuda Al-Kurdi, 22 years old, was found to be the ringleader and orchestrated the killing of Janio. He was the one who supplied the gun and lured Janio to the front door to be shot. Kuda was sentenced to a minimum of 33 years in prison and will come out at the age of 55. Mohammed Mansouri, 18 years old, was found to be the person who fired the shot that killed Janio. He was sentenced to a minimum of 27 years in prison and will come out at the age of 45. Mukhtar Saeed, 24 years old, was the oldest member of the group and was found to be in possession of a weapon and acting as a backup. He also played a major role in the planning of the attack and will let the group know where to position themselves. Mukhtar was sentenced to a minimum of 29 years in prison and will come out at the age of 53. 19-year-old Issa Sateri and Yusuf Abdi were both found to have a role in the murder, so were handed 28 years each as part of joint enterprise. A 17-year-old kid who can't be named was also handed a 22-year sentence for his role in the killing. The craziest thing about all this is once the judge was handing out the sentences, some of the members were laughing and smiling in front of Janio's mum, who was grieving her dead son. Judge Simon Mayo KC had to apologize to Janio's family for the bravado shown by the defendants during sentencing. That behavior was singled out as especially offensive given the nature of the crime. The judge described the killing as calculated and callous, emphasizing how the defendants had laid in, waiting for Janio, used deception and coordinated roles between the group on how they were going to execute the killing. In court, Janio's mother spoke directly to the defendants, condemning their actions and asking why her son had been targeted. She told them the CCTV footage looked like a movie and described the pain of losing a child. The motive for this attack is still not known. It's clear that the group had planned to kill Janio for a while, just because of how ruthless the execution was. The prosecution linked the killing to drug dealing rivalries and disputes between groups. The defendants refused to clear up the reason for the attack, and therefore things are still left unanswered. The fact that these 6 boys have thrown their lives in the bin over something so stupid is just hard to comprehend. A 21-year-old man has been executed in front of his front door, but I guess the question that is left unanswered is why did they kill Janayo Lucima?